Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Today we have a special day. We're at Potapalooza. So we're doing a quick how you whatever, just talking to a special guest. And today we have with us Kelly Tallaksen, and I'm going to let her jump right in and introduce herself, and then we're going to have a engaging conversation for the next 20 minutes. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh yeah, thank you. So just tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're going and how you chose to be on a podcast called Adult Child of Dysfunction, because we all have a story.
Yeah, we all have a story. I actually am an adult of childhood dysfunction, and I do work with people daily to help them overcome childhood dysfunction. And the reason I got into this is because I'm a hypnotist, and the only way I was really able to heal was using hypnosis. And the reason for that is a lot of times we're blocked off from our own pain. And we do that during childhood. It's a protective strategy. We pull it in, we block it because we're too young. Our bodies are just not capable of processing heavy emotions. And we feel the heavy emotions mostly in our childhood, right? So what happens is people say, I've been meditating, I've been seeing therapists, I tried this, I tried Reiki, I tried that. And what's happening is they're doing all the right things, but they don't realize they put up very thick walls called protectors. And those walls are protecting them for re-experiencing the pain from childhood. So it's not the people that are trying to help them heal. It has nothing to do with their healing abilities, and it has nothing to do with the person trying to heal. It has to do with just the way our brain works. And the way our brain works is it has that primary brain that puts us in a state of survival. And that state of survival is all about protecting us from re-experiencing the pain that could actually bring us to our knees and throw us right back into that part of us where we feel so unworthy of the world. And it could really crush us and throw us into depression. So as a protection, we block it and we go on with life. But what we don't understand is we're limited now. And the reason we're limited is because we do have this part of us feeding into our consciousness on an unconscious level. It's actually putting our body into slow motion. It's making us unmotivated because we're so afraid of the world and we don't even realize it. We're afraid to be seen. We're afraid to be heard. We're afraid to get out there because we do might have feelings of shame, unworthiness that we're holding deep within us. We just don't know it's there. So the work I do is to take people using hypnosis is to get them into a place where they're so focused inward that I can actually help them break through those walls and they don't have to re-experience the pain the way they think they will. Because I also not only get them into what we call an alpha or theta state of consciousness, which is a little bit of a trance. They're not unconscious. They know what's happening. They know they're with me. They know they're still in their body. They're not going anywhere. No one's going to harm them. So what's really happening is they're just focusing deep within and going past that barrier, that wall that they created, so that they can feel those emotions. Because if they don't feel them, they can't be processed. I help them process them by not only taking them into that trance state, but then guiding their mind, their consciousness into what we call the highest level of consciousness, their highest intuition. We could call it your spirit self, your God self, whatever they want to call it, but we all have a higher level of awareness. And it's about bringing this part into that higher level awareness so it can be processed with love and compassion through the spirit of who we are instead of through the fear consciousness that we think we're going to re-experience. So it really is a beautiful journey to go on. Everybody says after that session, I feel lighter, and they don't realize they're releasing energy. They're releasing heavy energy of emotions that actually weighed down their body, and that's why they were unmotivated. That's why they're limited. So that's basically what I do.
And that's a big you in a nutshell, because you just said a whole lot to say a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Because I think that's one of the things for people that have never worked with a hypnotherapist. I think that's one of their biggest fears is they see on TV all this stuff, make you jump like a monkey and quack like a duck and all this ridiculous stuff. But I think they're afraid. Their biggest fear is that they're going to have to re-experience the actual event that happened. And so you're saying you could do that hypnotize them, get them to break through the fear part of it without actually experiencing it.
Yes, I actually have them while they're in their highest level of consciousness. I tell them from where they are in this broad experience of loving compassion for who they are as a human, as a spirit. I said, you can now view, witness, and examine your earthly experience from this higher level. So when they're doing it from a higher level, in that higher level, there is no fear. Fear comes from our third dimensional experience. I'm taking them out of the third dimension into the fourth and fifth, as high as they'll go that day, so they can witness it from this place of loving compassion without the fear, without the judgment, and all of that. So it's a whole different way to see it. That's why a lot of time, that's why the walls are up. They don't want to be in that fear again. So it's so much easier when I can help them see it from a higher understanding. And what I always say is the first step to self-love is self-awareness. So if
Right.
I can make them more aware from a place of loving compassion for themselves, they're more geared to see themselves in that loving space and not so much in a place of unworthiness.
Yep, absolutely. And I like that because I mean that's like I said, that's people's biggest fear is that so it's almost like a healthy form of dissociation. So you're
Yes,
like outside of your body, but you're not outside of your body because you've just completely shut down. You're outside of your body because you've been guided to a better place to be in your spiritual realm, I guess you could say. So
yes.
I love that. I love that explanation because I've had a couple of hypnotherapists and people that have been doing it forever that have explained that to me, but not in that exact way. So I've never really got grasped the concept of why you could do it without making them re-experience it. So that's thank you for that explanation. For the people out there listening, that's a very different explanation than
Mm,
what I've got from other hypnotherapists. So thank you for that.
you're
So
welcome.
if so when you work with people, is it an ongoing process or is it a one and done?
It's usually a one and done because my sessions are 2 hours. And if you think about it, most of our life, anytime we feel any sense of feeling of unworthiness, there's going to be somebody else involved because we're all about our relationships, right? The way we bonded with others or did not bond with others as children.
Right.
So when they're in that high level of awareness in their spirit, okay, I explain to them that where they are, that they are one with all other spirit energies, whether that spirit is still in a body or whether they've left their body. So when I do the interview with them, I'm looking for the red flags. They might say to me, I'm doing great. My life is good. I don't know what's holding me back. And I start with simple questions. Mom and dad both alive. Are they still together? Tell me about your childhood. Because they don't see the red flags because they blocked off a lot of their past. So when somebody says to me, oh no, my father left when I was 5, or my father died when I was 10, to me, that's a big red flag. So I will have them call in their energy, whether they're alive or not, it doesn't matter because in the spirit world, we're just spirit. We're
Right.
collectively one. So when they call them in, I'll say, what is it you need to say to them you could not say? What is it you need to know that you're still wondering about? And they will actually have a soul to soul communication. And that's where the deep magic happens. Because
Wow.
when you're in the spirit and you're calling in someone in spirit, they're not coming in with fear or anger either. They're coming in with their level of truth. Everything, if you take it to the highest level of truth, we all just want to be loved. We all just want to feel love. But we get trapped in dysfunction in our third dimensional world, and it pulls us away from the love. When you bring back the love between the mother and the father or the child and the whatever it is, they start to look at it in a different perspective. It doesn't mean I'm going to go have lunch with you because maybe they are still dysfunctional. It
Right.
just means satisfied it in your own consciousness. So you're no longer carrying that weight, that heavy energy of unfinished business in the mind. Because if it's unfinished, believe me, it's still ruminating in your mind, whether you like it or not.
Yes, and it's running everything they do and every relationship they have and absolutely everything going forward. That's the truth.
100%.
Well, that's
Yes.
amazing. It's a one and done. That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, so how long does this process take? And so
Yeah.
I'm sure, and I'm so now let's say, okay, so someone comes to you and says the red flag comment, my mom left me when I was 10, or my mom was an alcoholic and really didn't have time for me, and quote unquote, that's one big issue. So are there others to repeat? Does that wipe out all of them, the major
It
underlying
depends on the
issue?
person. It depends on the person. Sometimes they're not willing to release it, but also remember the body's not willing to release it because the
Right,
body is holding onto the energy, right? And the body is what's in survival mode. So if they're very strong in their survival energy, it may take a couple of sessions to convince the body you're safe now.
right,
So, or sometimes the resentment is so strong. So, the way I really help them through it is I have them, believe it or not, when they tap into that other person through their soul, I say, I want you to go back to their childhood and tell me where did it go wrong for them, not what's wrong with them, because nothing's wrong with anybody. It goes wrong for us. So I
right.
say, what went wrong for them to react the way they did towards you? What is going on in their life in their childhood they did not resolve, and right away they answer it because they're in their highest level of intuition. They'll say, oh my god, they've been ignored, they don't feel loved. And I'll say, well, now that you know that, how does that make you feel about how they show up in your life, being that they're showing up unhealed? I feel sad for them. So it's no longer anger, it's now empathy and compassion.
I was just going to say you're opening a whole new level of empathy and compassion if you're looking at it from the truths, because
Yes.
that's the biggest thing for especially kids that have grown up in that kind of dysfunction is when they that moment that they finally realize that those parents or those caregivers or whoever, those abusers were coming from a place of trauma, the same place they're in. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, they didn't mean to do that. They
Yeah.
had no choice. That's all they knew. They didn't have that level of awareness to help themselves. So
Right.
yeah, that's a huge transfer. That's a pivotal moment when you realize that and you can
But a
look at
lot
your
of, yeah,
abuser.
right. See, what a lot of people don't understand, Tammy, is that about 90 to 95% of our behavior comes from the subconscious, which is
Right.
outside of conscious awareness. So people could grasp that on a deeper level, that most people are acting from this subconscious, and most people are acting from subconscious wounding that they're not even aware of. And it really does affect their behavior.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which is why we have this podcast.
That's right.
It's 100% it affects their behavior, whether you know it or not. And that's why, I mean, literally, that's one of the reasons I started this is because so many people, when I'd say, like, hey, they'll say, well, my childhood wasn't that bad or nothing really bad happened. And then they're like, all of a sudden, in the next conversation, it's like, oh, yeah, well, this one time when my dad went to prison for a year, and it's like, yeah, okay. So you got some unresolved stuff there. And
Well,
it's,
people don't even realize a divorce is traumatic for a child.
oh, yeah.
Yelling in the home is traumatic. Being ignored is a challenge.
Hmm.
Not being the golden child and watching the golden child get praised and you didn't. All of this is very traumatic for a child because they're still trying to learn about who they are. And the biggest thing for a child is, am I worthy enough for their love?
Right.
And you
And,
take that
and,
away from them,
and oftentimes, and when it gets taken from you, that belief that you are at such a young age, it is very difficult to pull it out. But you can do it in
yes.
one session, which is amazing.
Yes, 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 yes.
That's
Most of the
great.
time it's one session. Most people don't come for more than three, but if they've had it, again, it depends. Some people don't want to let go. Okay. And sometimes to them, that's the protective energy that's not ready. So I have to kind of take them over and over again through the same thing until they can realize that it's them, that's holding on because they still fear they're not safe. Everything
Right.
comes down to the child is all about safety,
Right.
survival. That's what it's really about if you break it down.
So the people that aren't letting go, and I'm assuming again, a lot of this, like you said, as you mentioned earlier, is stored in the body. It's not necessarily stored just in your,
Right.
it's stored everywhere. So when you're doing the hypnosis therapy or whatever your session or whatever, does that also do the releasing in the body sometimes? Does that make a difference
Yes.
there?
Yes. I'll ask them where they hold it in the body. And some people say my heart, my head, my back, whatever. And I ask them to focus on the energy. And I say, I want you to send so much love there that it starts to transmute all of that pain into self-love. And then I also tell them, okay, so if they believe in spirit guides and angels and all that, I'll ask them to call in their spirit guides to help release the energy. And I tell them you're going to start feeling some energy being pulled from that area. I tell them I'll be silent, and they will tell me they feel the energy being pulled out. And
Oh
then they'll
yeah,
tell me feel later. So, it all depends on their belief system, because if they don't believe it, I don't go there. So, so I always work around what feels true to them,
that's
you know.
great. That's great. So do you practice online? I'm assuming you do virtual, you do everything.
I do. I do. I'm also a public speaker, so people that follow me come to see me speak. I have 3 published books. My second book, called The Voiceless Soul, is going to be a short film, and that's about generational trauma.
Oh,
You know,
neat.
whole book is about generational trauma, because that's what I talk about a lot, is how we can heal generational trauma. And what it really comes down to is understanding our ancestors' journey. Because what we don't understand is they did not do this on purpose.
Right,
They also didn't have the healing modalities we have today. We
right,
also have to realize that the planet, the energy of the planet, is also moving through each generation. It is expanding and moving into a higher level, and we're moving with it. So if our ancestors grew up in famines and some serious wars and some serious diseases, and each generation we get more and more civilized, and that's what I'm trying to make people understand. So you can't say, well, she should have known, or he should have known. Believe me, if they have known, they would have been a different person. If they weren't so wounded, they would have been a different person, which means you would have had a different upbringing. So, but we can't just do this through talk, because there's too many walls up, too much anger,
right.
too much resentment that's blocking it. So by using hypnosis, we release, that barrier, and we get right to feeling the compassion. And
Yep,
that's how I had to heal with my own parents, is to understand their story. Once I understood their story, I was like, oh, I can't even imagine how that felt.
right. And
How could
often
you?
people don't get that opportunity to hear the other story. They have to make up the story on their own, or they
That's
have to
why
guess, or they have to think,
I
because especially when it's sometimes 3 generations back,
so
like,
that's why when in hypnosis, I have them channel it. I said, I want you to bring in their energy, and I want you to feel it, and I want you to tell me what's going on. And then what does their energy feel like? What does that tell you? And right away they answer. We're very intuitive beings.
oh yeah, we just don't tap into it as much as we should.
Exactly.
And that goes
Exactly.
back to that level of awareness, and it's like, and that's why I said it's nice to have somebody to work with you through these things too, because when you're acting and thinking from your subconscious mind, you can rationalize these things logically as much as you want, but then when the rubber hits the road and you got to make a decision, you go right back to boom, like that. Where did that come
Exactly.
from? Yeah, and that's why
Exactly.
it's
All
so
the
important.
triggers. Exactly.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
this has been super fun, but tell people I'm going to have everything that you give me. I don't have much right now, but I'm going to get all your links and everything for the show notes, but the best place that they can reach out and talk to you if they want to work with you, talk to you, learn more.
They can send me an email at Kelly, Kelly, at heartwisdom.info.
Okay, heartwisdom.info. And again, I will put that in the show notes for anybody. And if you had to, this has been, like I said, super fun. I got an explanation I've not had, a very simple explanation, which made 100% sense to me. So I'm assuming it's making 100% sense to a lot of the listeners out there. But if you had to give them a piece of advice, words of wisdom, or something to carry with them through the day, what would that be?
What it would be is, I do get a lot of people that say, and I'm sure you did too, I have anxiety, my worry. Okay. So instead of claiming it, okay, you can say this instead, and it will actually help you feel better about yourself and about what you're experiencing in the body. Instead of saying, I have anxiety, just say, a part of me is having the experience of anxiety, because it's not all of you. Otherwise, you'd be completely dysfunctional. It's only a part of you having that experience. And that part of you needs your attention and love. But if the reason it's overwhelming your whole body is because it's very intense from that part of you. But it's not all of you. So don't claim it as it's happening in all of you. It's just a part of you having an experience. That's it.
That's again another very simple explanation for a very broad concept that I've heard a lot of. And it is true. It's instead of constantly saying I'm anxious or I've got anxiety, it's like you give yourself this is who I am, and it's not. It's just
And it
something
pulls
like
you in that trap, right?
it gets you in that vicious cycle, and then you start
Yes.
feeling badly, and then you try to get rid of that anxiety, and trying to get rid of it we know is the worst thing you can absolutely do, because then you just get more parts of you get drawn in and get more unsafe and more anxious. So, well, thank you so much, Kelly, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for everybody else out there, you heard an amazing, simple explanation to how a hypnotherapist can get you through the things that you thought were unbreakable. So, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Tammy. Have a great day.
You too.